My manipulative mother-in-law blamed me for being unfaithful, accused me of prioritizing my career over my marriage, and claimed I was trying to alienate my husband. When I denied her accusations, she slapped me hard and shouted, "How dare you talk back to me?" Determined to seek revenge, I exposed her secrets during a family gathering, and within the next hour, a shocking surprise awaited everyone. When I first married Daniel, I thought I was stepping into the perfect life. We lived in Austin, Texas, a vibrant, sunny city filled with opportunity. I worked as an architect, designing spaces that people could call home, and Daniel was a financial analyst with a knack for making numbers work in his favor. Our love felt unshakable, built on a foundation of trust and understanding, or so I thought. But life has a way of surprising you, doesn't it? Sometimes the cracks appear in places you never thought to look. For me, those cracks started small, almost unnoticeable, like hairline fractures. At first, it was just little things Daniel would say, offhand remarks that made me feel scrutinized. "Mia, why were you late getting home yesterday?" he'd ask, his tone casual but his eyes searching. "Traffic was bad," I'd reply, brushing it off. But then he'd follow up. "Really? Because Evelyn said she saw you at the coffee shop on Main Street." I didn't think much of it at first. Evelyn, his mother, was always around, always noticing things. She was retired, and I figured she was just keeping herself busy. But then the comments started coming more frequently. "Evelyn said she heard you talking to some man at the grocery store," Daniel would say. Or, "Mom mentioned you were dressed up when you went out to lunch. Why didn't you tell me you were meeting someone?" It felt like every move I made was being monitored, questioned, and dissected. I couldn't figure out why. Daniel had never been this way before. He was the kind of man who trusted me, who celebrated my independence and drive. I tried to dismiss the growing unease, convincing myself it was all in my head. But deep down, I knew something was off. The tipping point came one evening when Daniel came home late from work. His face was tight with tension, and he barely met my eyes as he set his briefcase down. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low. I froze. "What's wrong?" He hesitated, and then the words spilled out. She thinks you might be hiding something from me. She's noticed a lot of strange things lately. And honestly, Mia, I've started noticing them too." The air was knocked out of me. Hiding something? What was he talking about? "Daniel, that's ridiculous. What could I possibly be hiding?" I demanded. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Mia. But things aren't adding up. You're always so busy, always out. And Mom said she's seen things that don't make sense." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Evelyn, the woman who had always been polite but distant, was planting seeds of doubt in my husband's mind. And worse, he was listening to her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how we had gotten to this point. When had Evelyn decided I wasn't good enough for her son? Was it the fact that I had a demanding career? That I wasn't the type to dote on Daniel the way she did? I decided I had to confront her. The next morning, I drove to her house. Evelyn greeted me at the door with her usual smile, but I could see something calculating in her eyes. "Evelyn, we need to talk," I said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. She raised an eyebrow. "Of course, dear. What's on your mind?" I didn't mince words. "I know you've been talking to Daniel about me. Spreading lies. Why are you doing this?" She feigned surprise, her voice dripping with sweetness. "Lies? Mia, I don't know what you're talking about. I only tell Daniel what I see. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about." Her words sent a chill through me. She wasn't denying it. She was twisting the knife, letting me know that she held the power to shape Daniel's perception of me. I left her house that day feeling more determined than ever to protect my marriage. But I also knew I was dealing with someone who wasn't going to back down easily. In the weeks that followed, things got worse. Daniel's doubts grew, fueled by Evelyn's whispers. I started noticing Rachel, an old friend of his, popping up more frequently. Evelyn would casually mention her in conversation. "Rachel stopped by to see Daniel the other day," she'd say. "It's so nice that they've stayed close all these years. Don't you think, Mia?" It was infuriating. I could see what she was doing, but Daniel couldn't, or wouldn't. He dismissed my concerns, chalking them up to jealousy. I felt trapped, powerless, like I was losing my husband to a force I couldn't control. But I wasn't going to give up without a fight. If Evelyn wanted to play dirty, I would play smart. I started paying attention, piecing together the puzzle of her manipulation. I had no idea just how deep her betrayal went, but I was determined to find out. As time went on, I realized I couldn't rely on Daniel to see the truth. His loyalty to his mother was unshakable, and Evelyn knew exactly how to exploit it. I had to take matters into my own hands. If I wanted to save my marriage and my sanity, I needed proof of what Evelyn was doing. The first thing I did was start paying closer attention to her patterns. Evelyn was smart, I'll give her that. She never said anything outright that could be pinned down as malicious. Her words were always wrapped in layers of plausible deniability. "I'm just looking out for you," she'd tell Daniel, or "I only want the best for our family." But I knew better. Behind her sugary tone was a carefully crafted web of lies, and I was determined to untangle it. I started keeping a journal, documenting every interaction I had with her, every suspicious comment she made, and every time Daniel came to me with something she'd said. At first, it felt like I was grasping at straws, but soon a pattern began to emerge. Evelyn wasn't just making idle observations, she was deliberately feeding Daniel doubts about me, and she was using Rachel to do it. Rachel. Even thinking about her name made my stomach churn. She and Daniel had been friends since college, and while I never felt threatened by her before, that changed once Evelyn got involved. Suddenly, Rachel was everywhere. She was texting Daniel more often, dropping by unannounced, even joining us for dinner on a couple of occasions. And Evelyn? She was thrilled. "You're so lucky to have someone like Rachel in your life," she told Daniel one evening as we sat around the dining table. "She's always been so supportive of you." I couldn't take it anymore. After Rachel left that night, I confronted Daniel. "Why is she here all the time?" I demanded. "Why are you letting her get so close to us?" Daniel frowned, clearly annoyed. "Mia, she's just a friend. Don't turn this into something it's not." But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than that. Evelyn was using Rachel as a pawn, planting her in our lives to drive a wedge between us. I needed evidence to prove it. One day, I decided to follow my instincts. I installed a small recording app on my phone and left it running during a visit to Evelyn's house. It felt sneaky, underhanded, but I didn't care. I was desperate. When I played back the recording later that night, my heart sank. Evelyn's voice was crystal clear. "You know, Daniel deserves someone who truly appreciates him. Someone like Rachel. She's so much more grounded than Mia. Don't you think?" There it was. Proof that she was actively trying to undermine me. But what really broke me was hearing Daniel's response. "I don't know, Mom. Sometimes I wonder if you're right." Those words cut deeper than anything I'd ever heard. My own husband was doubting me, and Evelyn was the one pulling the strings. I wanted to scream, to cry, to confront Daniel right then and there. But I knew I had to play it smart. If I reacted impulsively, Evelyn would just spin it to her advantage. I decided to dig deeper. Over the next few weeks, I collected more recordings, more texts, and even photos of Evelyn meeting with Rachel at a local cafe. It became clear that she wasn't just planting doubts. She was actively encouraging Rachel to pursue Daniel. One afternoon, I overheard a phone call between Evelyn and Rachel while visiting Evelyn's house. I stayed out of sight, my heart pounding as I listened. "Daniel's been so stressed lately," Evelyn said. "You should check in on him. Maybe invite him out for coffee. He needs someone like you to talk to." Rachel's response was just as infuriating. "I've been meaning to. Thanks for letting me know, Evelyn." It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Evelyn was orchestrating everything, and Rachel was going along with it. I knew then that this wasn't just about jealousy or control. Evelyn wanted me out of the picture entirely. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Armed with my evidence, I began formulating a plan. I would confront Evelyn and Daniel in a way that left no room for denial. I wanted the truth to come out in front of everyone: Evelyn, Daniel, Rachel, and the rest of the family. It was the only way to break her hold on him and expose her for who she really was. Still, there were moments of doubt. Was I doing the right thing? What if Daniel chose to side with her? What if he never forgave me for going behind his back? These questions kept me up at night, but every time I thought about Evelyn's lies, I felt my resolve harden. The final straw came a week before Daniel's brother Ethan's birthday party. I found a text message on Daniel's phone from Rachel. It was nothing explicit, but it was clear she was trying to meet up with him alone. "Let's grab coffee soon," it read. "I miss our talks." I confronted Daniel about it, and his response only confirmed my fears. "Why are you going through my phone, Mia?" he snapped. "You're acting paranoid." "Paranoid?" I shot back. "Do you even hear yourself? Your mother is trying to destroy our marriage, and you're letting her do it." He didn't respond, just walked away, leaving me standing there, trembling with anger and frustration. That was the moment I knew there was no turning back. I spent the next few days preparing for the confrontation. I gathered every piece of evidence I had, recordings, texts, photos, and made sure it was organized and undeniable. When Ethan's birthday party rolled around, I was ready. Evelyn wouldn't know what hit her. When the day of Ethan's birthday party finally arrived, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. I had everything I needed to confront Evelyn, Daniel, and even Rachel if it came to that. I wasn't sure how the rest of the family would react, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. The lies, the manipulation, it had to stop. The party was held at Daniel's parent house, a spacious home with a big backyard perfect for family gatherings. The sun was shining, and everyone seemed in high spirits. Evelyn was playing the role of the perfect hostess, smiling and chatting with relatives, while Daniel stuck close to her, looking more relaxed than he'd been in weeks. Rachel was there too, mingling comfortably with the family. Seeing her made my stomach twist, but I kept my composure. I couldn't afford to let my emotions get the better of me. I waited until most of the guests had finished eating and were gathered in the living room for cake and presents. The perfect moment came when someone asked Ethan to make a speech. As he stood up and began thanking everyone for coming, I could feel my heart pounding. This was it, the moment I would take back control of my life. When Ethan finished, I stood up. "Before we continue, I need to say something," I announced, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. All eyes turned to me, and I could see Evelyn's smile falter. "What is it, Mia?" she asked, her tone sugary sweet, but her eyes narrowing slightly. I looked directly at her. "It's about you, Evelyn, and the things you've been saying and doing behind my back." The room fell silent. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and Evelyn's expression hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice sharp now. "Yes, you do," I replied, my voice firm. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and opened the recordings I had saved. "For weeks, you've been spreading lies about me to Daniel, accusing me of things I haven't done. You've been manipulating him, and you've even been encouraging Rachel to get closer to him. I have proof." Evelyn's face turned pale, but she quickly regained her composure. "This is ridiculous," she said with a forced laugh. "You're trying to turn my son against me. How dare you?" Daniel looked between us, his confusion evident. "Mia, what are you talking about?" he asked, his voice tinged with frustration. "I'm talking about this," I said, pressing play on the first recording. Evelyn's voice filled the room, clear and undeniable. "You know, Daniel deserves someone who truly appreciates him. Someone like Rachel. She's so much more grounded than Mia." Gasps rippled through the room. Evelyn's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. "That's taken out of context," she stammered. But I wasn't done. I played another recording of Evelyn urging Rachel to meet Daniel for coffee and showed text messages between Rachel and Evelyn conspiring to create opportunities for her to get close to him. Daniel's face turned red as he listened, his hands clenched into fists. "Mom, is this true?" he demanded. Evelyn glared at me, her mask of politeness completely gone. "I did it for you, Daniel," she snapped. "I was trying to protect you from her. She's not the right woman for you. She never has been." Her words hung in the air like a slap, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then Rachel, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. I didn't mean to cause any trouble, she said, her voice trembling. But Evelyn, she encouraged me. She told me I was helping you, Daniel. Daniel stared at Rachel in disbelief, then turned to his mother. You've been lying to me, he said, his voice shaking with anger. You've been manipulating me, trying to ruin my marriage. How could you? Evelyn's response was explosive. Because I know what's best for you, she shouted. She's tearing you away from your family, Daniel. I couldn't just stand by and let it happen. In that moment, I stood my ground. Evelyn, the only person tearing this family apart is you. You couldn't control Daniel's life anymore, so you decided to destroy mine instead. Well, it's over now. Everyone knows the truth. Evelyn's anger boiled over, and before I could react, she slapped me across the face. The sound echoed in the stunned silence, and I staggered back, my cheek burning. Gasps filled the room, and Ethan rushed to my side. Are you okay, Mia? He asked, glaring at Evelyn. Daniel stepped between us, his voice like ice. Mom, that's enough. You've gone too far. Evelyn's face crumpled, but there was no sympathy left for her in the room. Family members murmured in shock, and some even stepped away from her, their expressions a mix of disbelief and disappointment. Rachel, looking horrified, quickly excused herself and left the house. Evelyn, on the other hand, refused to apologize. Instead, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. For a moment, the room was silent, and then Daniel turned to me, his eyes filled with remorse. Mia, I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry. I held back my tears, my voice steady as I said, it's going to take time to fix this, Daniel. But I needed you to see the truth. After the confrontation, the house was left in stunned silence. I could see the weight of everything sinking into Daniel's face. The betrayal, the lies, the manipulation from the one person he had trusted unconditionally. His mother. Evelyn's exit, dramatic as it was, left no doubt in anyone's mind about her guilt. The slap she delivered to me was the final act that revealed her true character to the entire family. I turned to Ethan, who was still standing close, his hand lightly resting on my shoulder. I'm fine, I assured him, though my cheek still burned. The physical pain was minor compared to the emotional whirlwind I was experiencing. The rest of the family began to murmur amongst themselves, their disbelief evident. I overheard snippets of conversations. I can't believe Evelyn would do that. Poor Mia, and even, she's always been a little controlling. But this is too much. Daniel stood frozen, his hands on his hips and his head bowed. When he finally looked at me, his eyes were filled with regret. Mia, he said, his voice soft and broken, I'm sorry. I let her manipulate me, and I didn't trust you. I don't even know how to fix this. I didn't want to humiliate him further in front of the family, but I also wasn't ready to let him off the hook. You didn't believe me, Daniel, I said firmly but quietly. You let her poison our relationship. It's going to take more than an apology to fix this. He nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. I'll do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, anything. I just want us to be okay again. Hearing those words was a small comfort. I wasn't ready to forgive him yet, but at least he recognized the damage that had been done. In the days that followed, the fallout was monumental. Evelyn, humiliated and shunned by much of the family, left Austin to stay with her sister in another state. She made no effort to apologize, doubling down on her belief that she had only been protecting Daniel. It was clear she wasn't ready to admit her wrongdoing, and frankly, I didn't care anymore. Her absence was a relief. Rachel, too, disappeared from our lives. She sent a brief text to Daniel, apologizing for her role in the drama and admitting that she had allowed Evelyn to manipulate her. I didn't realize how much damage I was causing, she wrote. That was the last we heard from her. Daniel and I started counseling soon after. It wasn't easy. The sessions were raw and uncomfortable, forcing us to confront the trust issues that had taken root in our marriage. Daniel admitted how deeply Evelyn's words had influenced him, and I shared how isolated and betrayed I had felt. Slowly, we began to rebuild the foundation of our relationship. Through it all, I found a new sense of strength. Standing up to Evelyn had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but it showed me that I was capable of fighting for myself and for what I believed in. I refused to let her, or anyone else, define my worth. The family dynamic shifted as well. Ethan and a few other relatives reached out to me, offering their support and expressing their disgust with Evelyn's behavior. It was heartening to see that I wasn't alone, that others saw the truth and were willing to stand with me. Now, months later, things are finally beginning to feel normal again. Daniel and I still have work to do, but we're stronger than we've ever been. He's learned to set boundaries with his mother, and I've learned to trust my instincts. Looking back, I realized that Evelyn's betrayal, painful as it was, taught me a valuable lesson about resilience and the power of truth. She tried to tear us apart, but in the end, her lies only made us stronger. The scars are still there, but so is the love, and that's what matters most.